Your home should push you forward, not pull you back. Most people think success is about what you add to your life, but real growth often begins with what you remove. If your home feels heavy, unmotivating, or mentally exhausting, you're not lazy. You're surrounded by the wrong energy, and it's coming from things you've let stay too long. The truth is, some objects in your home are silently holding you back. They carry old memories, distractions, and emotions that you never made peace with. They take up space you need for clarity, confidence, and progress. In this audiobook, you're going to learn exactly 5 things to eliminate from your home immediately. These aren't surface-level tips. These are deep, clear actions that will change how you think, feel, and show up every day. Your home affects your habits, and your habits shape your future. Clean out what's killing your drive, and you'll feel your power come back fast. This is how you start fresh for real. Chapter 1. Remove items that make you feel like a failure. You know, one of the most powerful changes you can make in your life starts right where you live, right in your own space. And it's not about buying something new. It's not about making your home look pretty. It's about removing what no longer belongs in your life. And there's something specific I want you to focus on first. Remove the items that make you feel like a failure. Because those items, those objects you see every day, they're not just things. They carry emotion, they carry memory, they whisper to you when no one else is around. They remind you of something you didn't finish, something you started but quit, something you tried but it didn't work out. And without saying a word, those things make you question yourself again. They weaken your confidence, they take up space in your home, but worse, they take up space in your mind. You have to understand how your environment is shaping your thoughts. Every day when you walk into your bedroom, your kitchen, your closet, everything you see is speaking to you. And the sad part is many people are living in homes full of quiet voices saying, "You failed." A dusty treadmill in the corner, a business book you never opened, a vision board that never came true, that dress you bought for a special day that never came. You don't just keep the object, you keep the emotion attached to it, and that weighs on you. And the longer you hold on to it, the more it becomes part of your identity. You start believing that you're someone who gives up, that you're someone who never finishes, that you're someone who doesn't follow through. But that's not who you are. That's just what those things are telling you. And it's time to shut those voices down. Not with words, with action. You need to take inventory of your space. Go room by room, open the drawers, look at the corners you haven't touched in months, look at your shelves, your closet. Ask yourself, what in here is making me feel worse about myself? Be honest, be quiet. Take a breath and listen to your body. You'll know it. The second you see that item, you'll feel something. You'll feel that little dip in energy, that discomfort in your chest, that sudden reminder of something you'd rather forget. That's the signal. That's the item that's keeping you trapped. Now, I want to be clear. This is not about shame. This is about freedom. Removing something that reminds you of failure is not quitting. It's not denying your past. It's about giving yourself a fresh start. It's about telling yourself, that moment doesn't define me. That outcome doesn't belong in my present. That version of me no longer lives here. And once you remove it, you don't just get more space on the shelf. You get more space in your head. You feel lighter. You breathe easier. You stop reliving the story that hurt you. Some people say, what if I need it again? Well, ask yourself, do you need it? Or do you need the lesson it gave you? Most people don't need the item. They just haven't accepted the fact that it's time to move forward. Holding on to a failure doesn't help you learn. It just keeps you living in it. Real learning comes when you acknowledge it, grow from it, and release it. You don't need reminders of who you were when things went wrong. You need reminders of who you're becoming now. Now think about this. What would it feel like to walk into your space and feel nothing but clarity? What would it feel like to open your closet and not feel regret? To see your bookshelf and feel inspired? To sit in your room and feel peace and not pressure? That's what happens when you eliminate the emotional clutter. You give your brain a break from the constant background noise. And that break, it gives you the energy to focus on the things that matter now. It helps you build confidence, not because you're pretending things never went wrong, but because you're no longer holding yourself prisoner to them. You see, your physical space is often a reflection of your internal state. When your home is full of guilt, disappointment, and self-doubt, you carry that energy with you into everything, into your work, your conversations, your choices, and you start wondering why you feel stuck, why you can't move forward. But the answer is all around you, and the good news is you can fix it. Today, not next week, not next year, right now. Start small. Pick one corner, one drawer, one shelf. Don't wait until you feel ready. You might never feel ready, but the act of doing is what creates the feeling of strength. Pick up that object. Hold it in your hands. Ask yourself, is this helping me feel better about myself? And if the answer is no, put it down. Let it go. You don't need to keep something just because you spent money on it. That money is already gone. But what's still here is your peace, and that's worth more than anything you can store in a box. And some of the things you'll get rid of, they'll be hard to part with. Maybe it's something that once gave you hope. Maybe it's something you told yourself you'd use one day. Maybe it's a reminder of someone who hurt you, or a version of yourself you're still trying to forgive. And I understand that. But keeping it won't make it right. Keeping it won't bring healing. Healing comes when you make the choice to stop carrying the weight. Stop surrounding yourself with reminders of what didn't work. And when you do this, when you start clearing out those items, something changes in you. Your space starts to feel alive again. You walk into your room and it doesn't talk back. It doesn't pull you down. It lifts you up, because now every item in your space serves a purpose. Every item supports your growth. Every item reflects the person you are becoming, not the person you were struggling to stop being. You become a person. Find stability in an unstable world, not the person you were struggling to stop being. You deserve a space that makes you feel proud, a home that doesn't just look nice but feels right, a place where you can think clearly, sleep peacefully, work with focus, move with confidence. You deserve a space that works for your future, not one that keeps you stuck in your past. And the first step to building that space is this. Remove the items that make you feel like a failure. You may think it's just stuff, but it's never just stuff. It's a silent influence, a daily message. And when that message says, you didn't finish, you didn't make it, you're not enough, you need to stop listening. You need to answer back with action, not anger, not denial, but quiet, intentional removal. You need to say, this no longer belongs here, and I don't need to hold onto it anymore. Because the moment you remove those items, you're telling yourself a new story. You're saying, I'm moving forward now. I'm not who I used to be. I'm not my past mistake. I'm not defined by what didn't work. I'm ready for something new. I'm building a space that reflects who I am now and who I'm working to become. And that's how change begins, not with big speeches, not with big plans, but with small, honest steps. One drawer at a time, one object at a time, one decision at a time. Remove what makes you feel like a failure, and you'll start living like someone who's finally free. Chapter 2. Throw away things you keep out of fear. Most people don't realize how much fear is sitting in their home. Not fear in the form of danger or panic, but fear hiding in the quiet decisions they've made to hold on to things they should have let go of a long time ago. You don't see it as fear because it's buried in habits and excuses, but it's there, sitting on your shelves, hiding in your drawers, hanging in your closet. Every item you keep just in case is often a sign that fear has convinced you to stay stuck. You've got clothes you haven't worn in years, but you're afraid to give them away because what if you lose weight? What if you gain weight again? What if you suddenly need it for an event you don't even have planned? That's fear speaking. Not planning, not preparation, just fear. You've got paperwork from jobs you left long ago, but you're afraid to toss them because what if you need them someday? That's fear. You've got old gifts you didn't like, things you never used, objects that serve no real value to your life, but you're scared of what people might think if they found out you gave them away. That too is fear. Fear loves to hide in the background. It doesn't yell, it whispers. It tells you to hold on to things because you might regret letting them go. It tells you that letting go is risky, that you're safer keeping things close, that you're being responsible. But here's what fear doesn't tell you. Holding on to those things is costing you peace. It's draining your space, your clarity, your energy. It's keeping you mentally and emotionally tied to a version of your life that you no longer want to live. You've got to be honest about what you're really keeping and why. Are you keeping that box of old electronics because you'll fix them one day, or because you're afraid to admit they're already useless? Are you holding on to old letters because they hold meaning, or because you're afraid to move on? Are you keeping those clothes because they reflect your current life, or because you're afraid of change? These are the questions that open the door to growth. When you make decisions based on fear, you shrink your world. You build a life around avoiding pain instead of chasing possibility. And when your home becomes a place where fear dictates what stays, it slowly becomes a place that keeps you from growing. Fear of scarcity, fear of judgment, fear of change, fear of regret. All of it adds up, and the only way to break it is to start making decisions based on who you want to become, not what you're afraid to lose. Throwing away things you keep out of fear isn't about being careless, it's about being clear. Clear about what actually matters. Clear about what adds value to your life. Clear about what helps you move forward instead of keeping you frozen in a place you've outgrown. And the moment you start removing those fear-based items, you begin to feel more powerful. You start making space for freedom, for confidence, for peace. Look around you. What's hiding in your home that represents fear? A closet full of clothes you hope to fit into again one day, not because you want to be healthy, but because you're afraid of what it means if you never do. A drawer full of old phones, broken gadgets, outdated chargers, just in case. That's not preparation. That's fear of being without. A shelf full of books you never read, but you keep them because you're scared it might say something about your intelligence if you let them go. That's not learning. That's fear of being seen as less. You've got to confront the truth. Fear-based choices do not create a strong life. They create a heavy life. A life full of things that say, I don't trust myself to move on. And that message plays over and over every time you walk past that object. You don't even notice it anymore, but it's shaping your thoughts, it's influencing your emotions, it's silently reminding you that you're stuck. Now imagine what your space would look like if you only kept what gave you strength. If every item in your home reminded you of what you believe in, not what you're scared of. Imagine waking up in a room that makes you feel ready, not hesitant. Walking into your kitchen without being reminded of a diet you failed. Opening a drawer without seeing a pile of things you'll never use. That's not just a clean home. That's a strong mind. That's a confident heart. That's a new direction. And it starts with one decision: to stop letting fear decide what stays. Start simple. Grab a box. Walk through your space slowly. Pick up the first thing that gives you that feeling of hesitation. Ask yourself, am I keeping this out of fear, not hope, not joy, not usefulness, but fear? Fear of being judged, fear of letting go, fear of needing it one day. And if the answer is yes, it goes in the box. And you'll feel resistance. You'll start rationalizing. But what if I need it later? What if I miss it? What if I regret this? That's fear again, trying to survive, trying to convince you that being stuck is safer than being free. But once you push past that moment and put the item down, you win. Not just physically, mentally, emotionally. You send a message to yourself that says, I am not afraid to move forward. And that message is powerful. What happens next is even more important. As you remove fear-based items, you begin to see more clearly what you actually want your life to look like. You stop organizing around what could go wrong and start creating space for what could go right. You gain clarity, you gain control, and suddenly your home starts to feel like it's truly yours, not a museum of what-ifs and old worries. You don't need to keep what makes you doubt yourself. You don't need to organize fear. You need to replace it with purpose, with peace, with truth. You are not what you're afraid of. You are what you're building toward. And every item you remove that was kept out of fear becomes a victory, a statement, a new habit. Because when you stop keeping things based on fear, you learn to live with more intention. You trust yourself more. You realize you can let go and still be okay. You realize you don't need to hold onto every backup plan or every safety net. You just need to believe in your ability to face what's ahead, with or without those things. You weren't meant to live a life surrounded by emotional safety blankets. You were meant to build a space that supports your growth. You were meant to walk into your home and feel strength. And the truth is, that strength is already inside you. It just needs room to breathe, room to move, room to take the lead. So take the step, one item at a time, one drawer, one shelf, one decision. Don't wait until you feel ready. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Make the moment right now. Take out what you've been scared to let go of. And as you do, you'll feel your confidence rise. You'll feel your heart open. You'll feel your life make space for new energy. Fear doesn't belong in your home. It doesn't deserve to take up your space. And the more you remove it from your environment, the more you remove it from your mind. And that's when real change begins. That's when you stop surviving and start living. That's when you stop managing your fear and start building your strength. And it all begins with this one powerful decision: to throw away what you've been keeping out of fear. Chapter 3. Take out stuff that reminds you you're behind. There's something most people live with that quietly eats away at their confidence. It doesn't shout. It doesn't knock on the door. It just sits in their space and quietly reminds them every single day that they're not where they thought they would be. It's the stuff they keep that tells them they're behind, not on someone else's timeline, on their own. The timeline they created years ago, the version of life they imagined would already be real by now. And instead of encouraging progress, these things make them feel like they've failed. You might walk past a vision board that's never changed. You might glance at a pile of notebooks with ideas you never followed through on. Maybe there's a certificate from a course you took but never used, or a journal you stopped writing in because it reminded you of everything you didn't complete. These things sit quietly, but the message is always loud. You're late. You're behind. You should have been further by now. And after a while, that message becomes part of your thinking. You begin to feel ashamed, even though you're still trying. You start comparing your real journey to a timeline that was never guaranteed. The problem is that your home becomes a scoreboard you didn't ask for. Every shelf, every drawer, every wall, you see reminders of goals you didn't hit, dreams that faded, plans you dropped, and even though you're growing, you don't feel it because your environment keeps reminding you of what didn't happen. That pressure adds up. It keeps you from enjoying your present. It clouds your focus. It chips away at your motivation, because instead of waking up and thinking, what can I do today? You wake up thinking, why am I still here? You weren't meant to live like that. You weren't meant to carry that mental weight every time you walk into your room. You weren't meant to feel defeated just because something took longer than expected. Life is not a race. Growth is not linear. Progress is not about checking off boxes on a schedule you made when you were a different person. The truth is, you're doing better than you think. But you can't feel that until you stop living in a space that tells you you're always behind. You've got to clear out the stuff that feeds that mindset. Not because those goals were wrong, not because those dreams weren't important, but because holding on to them in the wrong way is holding you back. When an object only reminds you of what didn't happen, it loses its value. It becomes a distraction, a weight, a source of silent shame. And you don't need that in your life, not when you're trying to move forward. You need a space that celebrates your effort, not your delays. A home that reminds you of how far you've come, not how far you thought you'd be. Go through your space with clear eyes. Take your time. Look at each item and ask yourself, does this make me feel behind? You'll feel it. Some items will give you a knot in your stomach. Some will trigger a quiet sigh. Some will make you feel frustrated without knowing why. That's your signal. That's the weight you've been carrying. You don't need to keep it. It's not helping you grow. It's keeping you stuck in comparison, even if that comparison is just to your old self. You might feel guilty at first. You might tell yourself, but I worked hard for this, or I put money into this, or I had big plans for this. That's understandable. But what's more important, keeping something because of the past, or creating a better mindset for your future? You can honor your past without keeping the things that make you feel like you're not enough. You can be grateful for what you've learned without keeping the object that holds you to the lesson. Growth means letting go of what no longer fits, not just in size but in purpose. There's nothing weak about releasing what drags you down. In fact, that takes strength. It takes honesty. It takes the willingness to say, I'm not going to punish myself for not moving faster. I'm not going to decorate my life with guilt. Because guilt doesn't push you forward. It just keeps you circling the same thoughts. You deserve better than that. You deserve to walk into a room and feel possibility, not pressure. You deserve to open a drawer and feel calm, not criticism. And you deserve to create an environment that works for who you are today, not who you thought you'd be 5 years ago. This is how you start building that environment. You take out the stuff that keeps you in the past. You remove what doesn't support your current direction. You stop giving space to things that only highlight what you haven't done. And in doing that, you make room for new energy. You create space for clarity.
You allow peace to enter your life without competition. That's where progress lives. Not in perfection, not in speed, but in peace. Because when your home no longer tells you you're behind, your mind stops rushing, your heart stops doubting. You stop comparing yourself to deadlines that no longer matter. And for the first time in a long time, you feel present. You stop dragging your past into your present. You stop trying to meet a timeline that was built on pressure. And you start building from where you really are, with confidence, with honesty, and with a sense of relief that can only come from emotional freedom. People don't realize how much these items affect them until they're gone. But once you clear them out, you'll feel it. A lightness, a shift. You'll take a breath and realize it's been a while since you felt that free. That's because your space is no longer reminding you of what didn't happen. It's no longer asking questions that make you feel like a failure. It's no longer pushing you to prove something. It's finally quiet, supportive, yours. And the best part is, you get to decide what fills that space now. Maybe it's new tools that reflect your current goals. Maybe it's nothing at all, just open space and peace. Maybe it's a few photos or notes that make you feel proud of your effort, not ashamed of your pace. Whatever it is, make sure it supports your truth. Make sure it reflects where you are now, not where you thought you should be. That's how you start moving forward with power. You don't need reminders that make you feel late. You need reminders that you're learning, you're adjusting, you're still in the game. And that's what matters most. Time doesn't measure your value. Your effort does. Your consistency does. Your mindset does. And when your environment helps build that mindset, everything gets easier. You think more clearly. You feel more energized. You act with purpose instead of pressure. So don't keep the stuff that reminds you you're behind. It's not helping you catch up. It's slowing you down. Trust that removing it is part of moving forward. Trust that you're not failing. You're evolving. And sometimes, evolution looks like clearing out everything that no longer belongs in your story. Because once you do that, your life starts feeling like your own again. Real, grounded, focused, and ready for whatever comes next. Chapter 4. Eliminate objects linked to painful past decisions. There are things sitting in your home right now that aren't just collecting dust. They're holding emotion. They carry memories tied to moments you wish you could erase. Not because they were unimportant, but because they hurt. These objects are tied to decisions that brought pain, regret, disappointment, or heartbreak. Maybe you didn't realize it at the time, or maybe you knew and went through with it anyway. Either way, you made a choice, and the outcome left a scar. Now those items are still there, sitting quietly in the background, pulling you back into a moment you've tried so hard to move past. You don't need to explain it to anyone. Maybe it's a gift from a person you no longer speak to. Maybe it's something you bought during a season of your life when you felt lost. Maybe it's a picture from a relationship that ended in silence, or a letter you can't read without feeling regret. These things don't always sit in plain sight. Sometimes they're tucked away in a box under your bed, or on the top shelf of your closet. But even when you're not looking at them, your mind remembers. And that memory, no matter how small, slows you down. You think it's harmless to keep it. You think it's just an object, but it's not. It's a trigger, a reminder, a quiet emotional weight. And every time you come across it, even if just for a second, you feel that familiar sting. You feel the emotion you thought you buried. It comes back in a wave. Sometimes you ignore it. Sometimes you try to rationalize it. But the truth is, you're still holding on. Not because you want to, but because part of you doesn't know how to let go. And here's what you need to know. Healing doesn't always mean fixing what happened. Sometimes it means removing what keeps you attached to it. You don't need to hold on to pain to learn from it. You've already lived the moment. You've already felt it. You've already carried it longer than you should. The lesson is in you, not in the object. And keeping the object doesn't make you stronger. It just keeps the wound open. There's a part of you that's still connected to that decision. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe it was something you regret. Or maybe it wasn't your fault at all, but you still feel the damage. Either way, you've grown since then. You've changed. You've fought through hard days. You've kept going even when it hurt. And now you're building a new chapter. But how can that chapter begin if your space still looks like the last one? How can you feel peace when your home still speaks the language of your pain? Pain doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers through the things we keep. Through that shirt you wore the day everything changed. Through that unopened box that you can't bring yourself to deal with. Through those messages you saved but never read again. The hard truth is, you've created a quiet museum of memories that no longer serve you. And that museum is not honoring your strength. It's holding you hostage. You need to ask yourself, why am I keeping this? What does it give me? If the only answer is guilt or sadness or regret, then it's time to remove it. Not because you're trying to forget what happened, but because you're choosing to stop reliving it. You've carried the weight long enough. The object is not the memory. The decision is not your identity. And your past is not your punishment. You can't move forward if your environment keeps pulling you backward. You can't grow if your surroundings keep telling you the same story. At some point you have to make a clean break. Not because the past didn't matter, but because your future matters more. Letting go isn't easy, especially when the pain is still fresh. But it's necessary. Not for the sake of pretending, but for the sake of peace. Think about how many times you've avoided going through that box. How many times you've skipped that drawer. How often you've walked past that picture and felt something in your chest. That tension, that sadness, that heaviness you try to ignore. It builds up, and it turns your home into a space that doesn't feel safe. Not because it's loud or chaotic, but because it's quietly filled with reminders that hurt. You deserve to live in a space that supports your healing, a space that reflects your growth, a space that speaks to who you are now, not who you were when things fell apart. And the first step to creating that space is removing what pulls you back. That shirt, that photo, that note, that item you've kept because you didn't know what to do with it. Do something with it now. Make a decision that aligns with the life you're trying to build. This isn't about throwing things away recklessly. It's about honoring yourself enough to say, I don't need this to remember the lesson. Because real growth means recognizing when something no longer belongs in your life, not just emotionally, but physically. Your home is where your mind resets. It's where your spirit recharges. It's where your energy gathers. And if your home is full of emotional landmines, how can you ever truly feel rested? Start small. One item, one memory, one decision. You don't have to do it all in one day, but you have to start. Because the longer you wait, the longer you stay connected to a version of yourself that's already outgrown. There is freedom in releasing. There is strength in choosing peace over pain. And the act of letting go becomes a declaration. I'm no longer tied to this chapter. I'm writing a new one now. And here's what happens when you finally release those objects. You feel space open up. Not just on your shelf, but in your heart. You start to breathe deeper. You walk into your home and feel calm, not triggered. You stop running into the past every time you turn a corner. And slowly the quiet tension fades. Your mind becomes lighter. Your emotions settle. Your spirit lifts. That's the power of removing what holds your pain. You're not erasing the past. You're respecting your healing. You're making a choice to live forward, to feel free, to exist in a space that empowers you instead of draining you. And that kind of space, one filled with clarity and intention, changes everything. So if you've been waiting for a sign to finally let go of the objects tied to your painful decisions, this is it. The time is now. Not tomorrow. Not when it feels easier. Now. Because your peace cannot wait. And you are not meant to carry those reminders forever. You're meant to rise from them. Stronger, clearer, freer. And it starts with the courage to remove what no longer supports who you're becoming. Chapter 5. Get rid of things that delay your next step. One of the most overlooked reasons people stay stuck is the clutter they allow in their daily environment. Not just mess, not just items scattered around, but things that quietly interrupt progress. Objects that sit there doing nothing useful, yet making it harder to move forward. Every time you try to take a new step, those things pull you back. Sometimes physically, sometimes emotionally, sometimes mentally. You may not even notice it happening, but day after day you feel the drag. You feel the slowdown, and it starts to feel normal. That's the danger. When your home is filled with things that delay your next step, your energy gets divided. You can't think clearly. You can't act quickly. You start to feel tired more often. You feel overwhelmed for no obvious reason. And deep down, you know you've been holding on to things that don't serve your future. You tell yourself you'll deal with it later, but that later turns into weeks, then months, then years, and all the while your momentum gets weaker. Your goals get more distant, not because you lack ambition, but because your environment is fighting against your decisions. You need to understand how much power your surroundings hold over your direction. If you live in a space that's filled with half-finished projects, unopened packages, unnecessary tools, or broken items you've convinced yourself you'll fix one day, you're slowing your mind down. You're constantly navigating through decisions you already postponed, and each one is a distraction. Each one sends a message that says, you're not ready yet. That message is subtle, but it has weight. You feel it when you hesitate. You feel it when you walk into a room and immediately feel stuck. You feel it when a task that should take 10 minutes ends up taking an hour, because you had to dig through clutter, shuffle through piles, or avoid reminders of things you didn't complete. You want to move forward, but your space is full of signals that say you're not prepared. That kind of energy kills confidence. You begin to doubt your ability to move fast, to adapt, to act with purpose. You begin overthinking. You waste time in hesitation. And the saddest part is, it's completely avoidable. You're not stuck because you lack ability. You're stuck because your environment keeps reinforcing delays. And the only way out is to remove those delays. Physically, permanently, intentionally. Take a look around and ask yourself what's holding you back. Is it equipment you bought for a goal you never pursued, but you keep just in case? Is it books you've never read, but feel guilty for not opening? Is it boxes of materials for a business idea you abandoned, but haven't admitted to yourself that it's over? These things aren't neutral. They're keeping you frozen. They're reminders of decisions you haven't made. And every time you see them, you carry a little bit of that pressure into your day. To build momentum, you need a space that supports speed. That supports clarity. That helps you decide and act without delay. That means getting rid of anything that constantly interrupts your forward motion. You don't need to justify it to anyone. You don't need to feel bad. If it's not helping you move, it's holding you still, and stillness becomes dangerous. When it turns into avoidance, every drawer you avoid, every closet you don't open, every table stacked with clutter, that's a block, a delay, a silent resistance. It doesn't matter if the item was expensive. It doesn't matter if you had good intentions. What matters now is whether or not it's helping you get to the next step. If it's not, it's got to go. This is not about minimalism. It's about forward motion. You're trying to build a better life. You're trying to make progress, take action, create something meaningful. And you can't do that if you keep pausing to deal with old distractions. You can't go full speed while dragging weight you don't need. Every step forward should feel lighter, not heavier. Every space you move through should help you think clearly, not remind you of delays. People underestimate how much cleaner their thinking becomes when their space is cleaned with intention. You think faster. You make choices without overthinking. You focus longer. You sleep deeper. You wake up with more clarity. Not because your home is fancy, but because your home is aligned with your mindset. Your home should match your hunger, your drive, your values. And if it doesn't, you're forcing yourself to grow in a space that keeps pulling you backward. It's time to get honest about what's actually useful and what's just taking up space. Useful isn't about potential. It's about the present. If it hasn't been used in the last year and doesn't have a clear role in your next move, it's a delay. If it's sitting there because you don't want to deal with the emotional weight, it's a delay. If you keep saying you'll use it eventually, but you know deep down you won't, it's a delay. Progress is built on decisions, and the more decisions you keep avoiding in your space, the slower your life feels. That's why decluttering isn't just about appearance, it's about strategy. It's about giving your mind less resistance to fight against every day. Imagine waking up and being able to find what you need in seconds. Imagine opening your laptop without having to push aside stacks of papers. Imagine walking into a room and immediately feeling like you're in control. That's what happens when your space stops delaying your decisions. You owe it to yourself to create an environment that makes action easier. That helps you think, move, and live with intention. This isn't something to do when you have time. This is something that gives you time. That gives you energy back. That removes friction from your routine. You'll be surprised how much faster you start executing when you're not battling distractions all day. Don't wait until the perfect time to start clearing it out. The perfect time is now. Not because it's convenient, but because it's necessary. Your next step needs space. It needs energy. It needs mental focus. And all of that is being wasted on things you don't even use anymore. Start with one small area, one corner, one shelf. Ask yourself, does this help me get where I want to go next? If the answer is no, then it doesn't belong. And the more of those things you remove, the more progress you'll start to feel. Because your energy isn't being drained by decisions you should have made months ago. You don't have to finish it all at once, but you have to start. Start with the delays, and you'll start moving faster. And when your environment starts aligning with your mindset, everything feels different. You stop hesitating, you stop wasting time, and you start moving forward with more control, more confidence, and more consistency than ever before. This is how real momentum is built. Not just by thinking big, but by removing everything that blocks your path physically and mentally. Make your space work for you, not against you. And you'll notice the minute the delays are gone, your life speeds up. Not in chaos, but in clarity, action and growth. And that's when the next step finally becomes real. Chapter 6. Dump anything that kills your motivation at home. The place you live in should be the place that drives you, not in some dramatic way, just in a clear, practical, everyday way. You wake up, you look around, and what you see should push you forward, not pull you down. But for most people, that's not what happens. They wake up in a room full of things that slowly kill their motivation, not loudly, not all at once. Quietly, repeatedly, every morning, every evening, until they start believing that this dull feeling is just who they are. It's not who they are. It's what they're surrounded by. It starts with the small things. The chair in the corner that's buried in laundry you've been meaning to fold for days. The TV that's always on because you're too tired to focus. The papers you stack and restack but never go through. The broken lamp you've been saying you'll fix for 3 months. The wall art you don't even like anymore but keep because taking it down feels like too much effort. And the worst part, none of it looks serious. None of it screams, "This is the problem." But it adds up. You walk through your home and instead of energy you feel weight. Instead of clarity you feel overwhelmed. You don't notice it at first, but the effect on your motivation is real. Your space is supposed to push you to act. But when it's filled with reminders of laziness, half-effort, unfinished business, and comfort zones you never challenge, it becomes a trap. It conditions your mind to settle. It tells you that you're too tired to try, that whatever you're avoiding isn't that big of a deal, that today can be wasted, just like yesterday. And once your environment becomes that kind of place, even your goals start to feel blurry. You forget what you said you wanted. You lose the fire you once had. You stop showing up fully, not because you don't care, but because nothing around you is helping you care. You need to look around and ask, what in this house is killing my drive? What makes me feel like sitting down when I should be standing up? What pulls my attention when I should be focused? What makes me feel lazy instead of alive? You know exactly what those things are. You've just gotten used to ignoring them. You've learned to look past the things that pull you down because dealing with them takes effort. But if you keep looking past them, you'll keep walking past your own potential. Start with your room. Is your bed always messy? Is your desk buried in clutter? Are there clothes on the floor, old receipts on the dresser, food wrappers on the nightstand? Those things matter. They're not just mess, they're signals. They tell your brain that nothing here requires effort. They teach you to tolerate low standards, and if your mind gets comfortable with low standards in your space, it will carry that same attitude into your decisions, your habits, your routines. What starts in your room leaks into your life. Your motivation doesn't just come from inside you, it comes from what surrounds you. If your surroundings say relax all the time, you'll stay there. But if your space is clean, sharp, ready, you start feeling sharp too. You sit straighter. You speak clearer. You move with more purpose. That's the power of your environment. That's why this matters. It's not just about getting rid of mess. It's about getting rid of anything that makes you forget who you're trying to become. Maybe it's the old gaming console that steals your nights. Maybe it's the couch that's too comfortable, the one that eats your weekends. Maybe it's the stack of magazines you never read, but flip through when you're trying to avoid real work. Or the giant blanket you use to cover yourself when you're feeling low instead of standing up and fixing your mindset. These things aren't evil, but they're not helping you. And you know they're not helping you. Every time you choose them, you lose time. You lose energy. You lose a little bit of that focus you worked so hard to build. And the more often that happens, the harder it is to recover. The harder it is to feel proud of yourself. Because deep down you know you're capable of more. You just haven't built a space that brings that version of you out. People say they want discipline, they want to stay consistent, they want to grow, but then they surround themselves with comfort and distraction. That doesn't work. You can't expect to be sharp when your environment is soft. You can't expect to stay locked in when everything around you is pushing you to chill. You need to be honest about that. Motivation is not just a feeling, it's a result of design. And your home is either designed for focus, or it's designed for delay. Walk into every room and feel the energy. Don't look at how it looks. Ask yourself how it makes you feel. If you feel flat, slow, heavy, lazy, that's the feedback. That's your signal. Something in that space is not helping you. Something needs to be cleared, moved, changed, tossed. You don't need to overthink it. You don't need to make it perfect. You just need to make it clean, clear and ready. That's what builds motivation. That's what keeps your fire alive. And don't forget your digital space. Your phone, your laptop, your browser. Do you open your phone and get sucked into things you didn't intend to see? Is your desktop full of distractions instead of tools? Is your to-do list buried under apps and notifications that drain you? That's your space too. And if it's filled with things that kill your focus, you're sabotaging your own momentum before you even get started. It's time to clear that out too. This isn't about being perfect. This is about taking control, taking responsibility, saying, I'm done living in a space that works against me. That's how you level up, not with big speeches, not with new books, but by changing the things right in front of you. The chair you always sink into, the cluttered counter that kills your morning energy, the music you play that pulls you down instead of lifting you up, the old posters, objects, souvenirs and furniture that carry the wrong energy into your day. Every item either helps you rise or helps you stay where you are. There's no in between. So if you want to become someone better, someone stronger, clearer, more focused, you need to start removing anything that whispers the opposite. You can feel the difference the moment it's gone. Your room breathes again. Your mind clears up. Your actions get faster. You stop negotiating with laziness. You start waking up with more direction, more drive. Your home should remind you of your standards, of your values, of your potential. If it doesn't, something needs to change. Don't delay it. Don't justify it. Don't settle for it. Walk through your space with new eyes and ask the real question, is this helping me become who I said I wanted to be? If not, it goes. No guilt, no second guessing, just truth, just action, just growth. That's how motivation becomes your default, not your struggle. It starts with the things around you, and when those things are aligned, everything else starts clicking into place. That's when progress shows up. That's when goals start turning into results. Not because you forced yourself, but because you built the right space to support it. And that space starts with one powerful step. Dump anything that kills your motivation at home. Chapter 7. Let go of things you're afraid to face. There are things in your home right now that you avoid looking at. You walk past them like they're not there. You open the drawer and close it quickly. You know exactly what's inside, but you act like you don't. You keep certain boxes sealed because you're not ready to deal with what they hold. Maybe it's something from your past, something that hurt, something that made you question who you were. Maybe it's a photo, an old message, a memory you've wrapped in silence. These things stay in your space, not because you need them, but because you're afraid to face them. You don't talk about them. You don't even think about them often. But they're there, and as long as they stay, they control part of you. Avoidance doesn't heal anything. It doesn't make pain go away. It just buries it under routine. You keep telling yourself you'll get to it one day. You'll go through that box. You'll delete that folder. You'll deal with the emotion. But time doesn't clean it up for you. It waits. And those things, whatever they are, continue to shape your energy. They sit there, untouched, holding a weight you carry around whether you admit it or not. You might smile. You might stay busy. You might even be growing in other areas, but the things you avoid still hold you back from real peace. Every item you avoid facing has power over you. It doesn't need to move. It doesn't need to speak. It just needs to stay where it is. And every time you see it, even if just for a second, it brings back a feeling. Guilt, shame, regret, anger, sometimes confusion. You push it down, you keep walking, you distract yourself. But none of that means you're free from it. That's the mistake we make. We think if we don't talk about it, if we hide it well enough, it doesn't affect us. But it does. It affects the way we think, the way we feel, the way we handle other people, the way we show up for ourselves. Letting go doesn't mean pretending it didn't happen. It means choosing to stop carrying it with you. If there's something in your space that brings pain every time you see it, even if that pain is quiet, it's time to release it. Not because it didn't matter, but because it already took enough from you. It already made its mark. It already taught you what it came to teach. Keeping it around only keeps you tied to a version of yourself you've already outgrown. Sometimes we keep things because we're afraid that letting them go means letting go of part of our identity. Maybe you made a mistake. Maybe you were in a situation that left scars, and you keep something from that time because it reminds you of who you used to be. Not because you love it, but because it connects you to a version of you that suffered. You don't need that. You've already survived it. You've already carried the burden. And now, it's time to put it down. That object isn't helping you heal. It's keeping you inside the wound. Or maybe it's not guilt. Maybe it's fear of change. You keep old clothes that no longer reflect who you are, but you're afraid of letting go because you don't know what comes next. You keep documents from a job you hated, a life you left, a version of yourself you're trying to move beyond. But as long as you keep those items in your space, you're not truly moving. You're standing still, trying to grow around things that represent the very identity you're trying to break away from. Growth demands clarity, and clarity doesn't live in a home full of avoided corners. If you're afraid to deal with something, that's exactly where your freedom is. Your next level always hides behind the thing you don't want to face. And when you finally face it, not in your head, but in your actions, you reclaim that part of your life. That drawer that always made you feel weak now makes you feel in control. That box you never opened becomes space for something new. That folder you were afraid to go through finally disappears, and with it, the tension you didn't even know was sitting in your chest every day. You're stronger than the feeling you're avoiding. But you won't realize that until you take the step, until you open the box, until you make the decision, until you throw it out, until you say, I'm not keeping this in my life anymore, not physically, not mentally, not emotionally. That's how healing becomes real. Not in talking, not in waiting, but in doing, in clearing, in removing. Take a walk through your home with one question in mind. What am I avoiding? Be honest. Be quiet. Listen to your body. You'll feel it. That thing in the closet that brings you pain. That bag of memories that keeps you stuck. That note you saved but never reread. That object you once loved, but now can't look at without feeling something hard to explain. Those are the things that don't belong in your space anymore. Not because they don't matter, but because your growth matters more. And no, it won't feel easy. It might feel heavy. You might cry. You might hesitate. That's okay. That means it's real. That means it's something you've needed to face. But just because it's hard doesn't mean you can't do it. In fact, the fact that you're still here, still trying, still improving, still showing up, that's proof that you have the strength to deal with it now. You've waited long enough. It's time. Clear one thing today. Just one. Pick the item that feels heaviest. You know what it is. Don't try to find the perfect moment. Don't wait for a sign. The act of clearing it is the sign. When you remove what you've been afraid to face, you take your power back. You stop letting the past sit in your present. You stop giving energy to something that already took enough. And the moment it's gone, you feel it. That lightness, that shift, that peace you've been chasing in books, videos, routines, it finally shows up. Not because something changed outside of you, but because you finally cleared what was in the way. This is what real change looks like. It's not always dramatic. Sometimes it's one quiet decision, one drawer, one bag, one item that you finally decide no longer gets to stay. And you keep going. You keep clearing. You keep facing the things that used to make you pause, and with every one you release you become more grounded, more focused, more free. You deserve to live in a space that reflects your strength, not your fears. You deserve to walk through your home and feel proud of what you've let go of, not ashamed of what you've kept. And it starts here. Not tomorrow. Not next month. Right now. Go to the thing you've been afraid to deal with. Look at it. Feel it. Then make the decision. Take it out of your space. Let it go. And walk away lighter than you've felt in years. That's not just cleaning. That's transformation. And it's yours. Chapter 8. Cut out reminders of who you're no longer. There comes a time in your life when you outgrow certain parts of yourself. It doesn't mean you failed. It means you evolved. The thoughts you used to have no longer drive you. The habits you once followed no longer feel right. The identity you built to survive a difficult chapter no longer matches where you're heading. And yet, in your home, there are still things sitting around, things tied to the old version of you. You might not notice them every day, but they're there and they're holding you in place. Quietly, they remind you of who you used to be. And every time you see them, even for a moment, they pull you back to a life you've already grown past. You keep the clothes from a time when your confidence was tied to how you looked, even though you don't believe in that anymore. You hang on to notes from people who no longer know you, but they remind you of who you were when you needed their approval. You keep journals full of thoughts from a mind that was still learning how to speak kindly to itself. You store tools and gadgets from hobbies that don't reflect your passion anymore. And you tell yourself you're just holding on to memories. But deep down, those things aren't memories. They're mirrors. They show you a version of yourself you've worked hard to move past. And even if you don't say it out loud, it weighs on you. Your space should support your current path, not echo a former one. It should lift you, not confuse you. And if it's filled with items that reflect an outdated version of who you are, it becomes harder to believe in your own growth. You wake up in an environment that reminds you of who you were trying to stop being. That energy sinks in. It makes it harder to change your habits. It makes it harder to stay focused. You start to feel like you're fighting your past just to stay present. Most people don't understand how much identity is linked to the objects around them. They think change only happens in the mind. But the mind is shaped by what it sees every day. You can't build new thoughts in a space that still tells the old story. You can't stay committed to growth if your surroundings constantly say, "You're still the same." That's not an opinion. That's psychology. That's reality. You will always feel like you're stuck if you keep your environment stuck in your past. This isn't about erasing history. This is about choosing which parts of it you still want to live with. Just because something mattered at one time doesn't mean it still belongs now. Just because something once helped you survive doesn't mean it still deserves a place in your home. Survival is not the goal anymore. Strength is, clarity is, focus is. And that means being intentional with what you allow around you. If it doesn't reflect who you are today or who you're working to become, it needs to go. Think about how many things you've kept simply because they represent an old version of you. You didn't even mean to hold on to them. They just stayed. A certain style of clothing, a vision board from years ago, a drawer full of supplements or products you no longer use but keep because they remind you of the person you used to be trying to become. But that person has changed. Your mindset has changed. Your priorities have changed. And every item in your home should reflect that growth, not interrupt it. Go through your space with one simple question: does this still match who I am now? Not who I was, not who I thought I would be. Who I am now, who I've grown into, who I've fought to become. That's the person you should be protecting. That's the energy you should be surrounding yourself with. And if something in your home pulls you away from that identity, it's no longer worth keeping. And don't confuse nostalgia with attachment. There's a difference between honoring your journey and being stuck in it. You don't need to hold on to everything to prove that it mattered. Your growth is proof. Your peace is proof. Your mindset is proof. And when you let go of the objects tied to old pain, old habits, or old identities, you don't lose who you were. You finally accept who you are. That acceptance will change everything. Because now, when you wake up, your environment aligns with your mind. You don't walk into a room and feel tension. You don't open a drawer and feel confusion. You don't stumble across an old photo or item and suddenly fall back into old ways of thinking. You stay grounded. You stay focused. You stay here, in the present, where your energy belongs. Cutting out reminders of who you're no longer doesn't mean rejecting your past. It means protecting your future. You've done enough looking back. You've done enough revisiting. You've done enough holding on. It's time to make your home a reflection of what matters now. The decisions you're making today, the values you hold now, the life you're actively creating, not the one you already outgrew. And it's okay if this process brings emotion. That means it's real. That means it matters. You might feel sadness. You might feel guilt. That's part of growth. But don't let those emotions stop you. Use them as proof that you're stepping into something better. Every item you remove becomes a declaration. I am not going back to that version of me. I've learned, I've grown, I've earned the right to live free from the weight of who I used to be. This is the kind of decision that doesn't just change your space, it changes your mindset. It sharpens your focus. It clears your energy. It makes room for new thoughts, new habits, and new momentum. You begin to move through your day with a kind of mental clarity you haven't felt in years. Not because anything outside of you suddenly got easier, but because you stopped letting your environment speak for the person you no longer are. You deserve to look around and see only what supports you. You deserve to feel calm, proud, and clear in your space. And that becomes possible when you stop holding on to old reminders of identities you've outgrown. Take the step. Not tomorrow. Not when you feel ready. Now, you've waited long enough. You've done the hard work, and now it's time to honor that by letting go of anything that belongs to your past, but no longer belongs in your home. Chapter 9. Clear out anything that silently adds to stress. Stress doesn't always show up in loud ways. It's not always chaos or noise or crisis. Sometimes it's quiet. It lives in the background. It hides in small things. It builds slowly, and because it grows silently, most people never realize how much it's affecting them. But you feel it. You feel it when you're restless for no reason, when you wake up already tired, when your day feels heavier than it should, when your energy feels low, and you can't explain why. That quiet stress often has nothing to do with big life problems. It has everything to do with the things surrounding you every single day that drain you without your permission. It can be a crowded countertop, a packed drawer, a messy corner, an overfilled closet. It can be a hallway that always feels cluttered. It can be the dishes that are never quite clean. It can be the emails you don't want to open, the bills you keep putting off, or the to-do lists you write but never finish. And when all of these things add up, they create a kind of mental fog, a quiet tension that follows you from room to room, not enough to break you, but just enough to slow you down, just enough to keep your mind spinning instead of focused, just enough to keep your heart slightly unsettled. You live in it so long, you start calling it normal. You start adjusting your mindset to tolerate it. You stop noticing how much of your energy is spent reacting instead of choosing. You stop hearing how your space is constantly whispering, "You're not done." And when everything around you feels like something else to manage, to fix, to avoid, you stop resting. Even when you sit down, your mind doesn't stop, because nothing in your space is telling you it's okay to breathe. That kind of stress is dangerous because it feels small, but it's not small. It builds over time and shows up in your behavior. You snap quicker, you think less clearly, you avoid responsibilities, you delay progress, you doubt yourself more, you stay in a reactive state instead of a creative one. You tell yourself you're just tired, but what you're really experiencing is the weight of too many unmade decisions. Your home should not be a reminder of everything you haven't done. It should be a place that resets you, a place that gives you peace, a place that supports clarity. And if it isn't, it's not because your life is broken, it's because your environment needs to be cleared. Not redesigned, not decorated, cleared, stripped down to what actually matters, to what actually supports you. Start with the things you walk past every day that make you feel behind. That stack of unread papers, that bin you keep meaning to organize, that bag that's been sitting in the same place for months. You tell yourself it doesn't matter, but it does. Because every time you see it, it reminds you that something's unfinished, something is waiting on you, and that message is stressful, even if it's quiet. Then look at your digital space. The dozens of tabs open, the files you can't find, the notifications you ignore because you don't have the mental space to deal with them. That's not just digital mess, it's mental mess, and you carry it around, in the background of your thoughts, in the way you procrastinate, in the way you lose focus. It's pressure without volume, but it's pressure just the same. And what about your calendar? Is it filled with things you don't care about? Meetings you no longer want to attend? Obligations you said yes to out of guilt? Every time you look at it, you feel trapped. But you don't say anything. You just push through. And again the stress grows, quietly, but deeply. It builds in your shoulders, in your breath, in your tone, in your choices. You don't need more discipline. You need less noise, less pressure, less clutter. And to do that, you must be willing to clear what's not serving you. Not what's loud and obvious, but what's quiet and constant. The things you've stopped noticing because they've blended into your daily routine. The things that don't look like problems but feel like weight. The things that slowly pull you down by simply being there. You can feel the difference the moment you start removing them. You handle decisions faster. You respond to people with more patience. You wake up without dread. You move through your day with more presence. Not because your life suddenly changed, but because your environment stopped fighting you. You stopped surrounding yourself with silent resistance. Clearing stress doesn't mean escaping life. It means refusing to live buried under things you can control. It means asking yourself better questions about what you allow into your space. Does this object support me? Does this setup make my day easier? Does this reminder add value or add tension? If it doesn't help you live better, it doesn't need to stay. Don't wait for the stress to get louder. Handle it while it's still small, while it's still a few things here and there. Because when those few things become your everyday, they stop looking like stress. They just feel like your life. And your life should never feel like a never-ending to-do list. Your home should not feel like a place where you manage pressure. It should be the place where pressure goes away. Begin with what you've been avoiding. Not because it's dramatic, but because it's constant. Pick one drawer, one folder, one corner, one area that always pulls at your mind. Clear it, remove it, change it. Then feel the shift. Feel how your chest opens up, how your thoughts slow down, how your body relaxes without you forcing it to. That's the sign that you're doing the right thing. This isn't about being perfect. It's about being intentional. It's about living with fewer stress signals in your daily environment so your brain can finally breathe, so your heart can finally rest, so your mind can stop working overtime just to feel okay. You don't need more tips. You need less noise. You need to stop holding on to things that keep triggering your nervous system. Give yourself permission to live in a home that brings peace, even if it means getting rid of things you once thought mattered, even if it means saying no to patterns that felt familiar, even if it means disrupting the way you've always done things. You deserve that kind of clarity, that kind of control, that kind of calm. Stress doesn't belong in your space, not even the quiet kind, especially not the quiet kind. Clear it out. Make room for stillness. Make space for focus. Let peace be the new background to your life. Not tension, not noise, not pressure, just peace. The kind you create by taking full ownership of what stays and what goes. And once you feel that kind of peace, you won't want to live any other way again. Chapter 10. Destroy clutter that keeps you avoiding real change. Real change demands honesty. It doesn't wait for permission. It doesn't ask for the right time. It shows up the moment you stop avoiding the truth about what's holding you back. And for a lot of people, that truth is hiding underneath clutter. Not just mess, not just physical things scattered around, but the kind of clutter that creates distraction, builds excuses, and helps you avoid the hard work of transformation. It lives in the background of your daily life. You think it's just stuff, but what it's really doing is giving you something to focus on so you don't have to face what really needs to change. You open a drawer, and it's full of things you've been telling yourself you'll sort through later. You leave boxes untouched for months, because you don't want to think about what's in them. You keep shelves filled with items you haven't used in years, but you keep them anyway, as if letting them go means you're letting go of something you're not ready to deal with. You don't talk about it, but you feel it. Every time you see that clutter, there's a subtle shift inside. You feel pressure. You feel guilt. You feel the weight of something unfinished. And instead of acting, you pause. You scroll. You delay. And without realizing it, another day passes without progress. Clutter doesn't just take up space in your home, it takes up space in your mind. It keeps your thoughts crowded. It steals your focus. It gives your brain too many signals to process, and before you know it, you're too tired to take the next real step in your life. You start reacting instead of planning. You stop thinking long term. You default to survival mode. And when you stay there long enough, you forget what momentum feels like. There's a reason you keep saying you want to change, but don't feel ready. Your environment is working against your vision. It's filled with reminders of everything you haven't handled. And the clutter becomes a shield, a defense, something to blame, something to hide behind. You tell yourself you can't make that next move until things are more in order. But things won't get in order until you commit to real change.